our instructor for our pre-licensing with GREAT, our GAR school. So we're very happy that she is doing CE classes as well, in addition to the pre-licensing. We've had great feedback for all pre-licensing students about Ms. Dhanraj, and I know that you will like her teaching style and the content of her classes as well. So I'll turn it over to you, Nicole.
All right. Thank you so much, and welcome everybody. Half a day in Buenos, and just as Peggy introduced me, I am Nicole. I've been with GREAT for several sessions now, conducting the pre-licensing class. So it's an honor and pleasure to be able to share this, planning your post-COVID real estate operations. Now, I initially thought we had a small, cozy class, and now seeing that we have so many attendees, I'm quite thrilled and excited about that. I hope that we will be engaging using the chat as well as some poll features here. Now, you've just invested, about an hour and a half of your time today. I know sometimes using this technology, we're multitasking, we're probably on, the phone, especially hiding behind the camera. You have your family around and trying to get your other types of business settled. But I would encourage you that you spend at least 75% or more of your attention span with me, just because this is critical for you. This is a turning point. We have to be agile as agents, as business owners, as just regular people in today's society. So I think this is critical for all of us to really be attentive and engaged with this, so that we can actually leave this session with an action plan that you can implement that would help sustain you for your post-COVID real estate operations. So just a quick background about me. I have been investing in real estate for over probably 15 years. I have my own LLC for investment purposes only. Like Ms. Peggy said, I support the pre-licensing class. I've been on Guam for about 5 years here. My background is pretty diverse. So this class is really intersecting my background of economics, business, real estate, and then applied positive psychology. So blending those three to kind of give you some solid strategies that you can now implement as you go forth, now that we're, not so much that we're heading back into normalcy, but, some sort of new normal post-COVID crisis. So just because of the sheer size of how many people we have, I'd really like to be this very interactive, jump on for your chat feature. I'll try to see if we can take some questions in between, but also that as we go on, if I miss a question, I'll certainly come back to it at the end, okay? So let's get started here. For today's session, these are several objectives that we're going to meet today. I'm going to help address your concerns concerning the post-COVID crisis, especially as it relates to real estate operations. We will do some exploration to help determine what your new normal is as a real estate agent, and then develop a plan to increase your customer base and at least close your transactions in this post-COVID crisis, post-COVID pandemic. And as we get started this is meant to be tailored to suit you. I am going to give you the 50,000-foot view, things for you to think about. Hopefully you've already started thinking about some of these strategies that I'm going to share with you using some of the technology as well. And now just maybe solidifying it so that you have a good plan of action to go forth with. So let's get started by addressing what are some of your concerns. I'm going to launch a poll here for you. And this is anonymous. So let's see here. This is just kind of to get a feel of where you are, and then we'll start addressing some of those concerns. So we have, let's see, about 6 questions there. Make sure you go through all of them and then you hit submit. What are some of your concerns around the real estate industry, around your career? around your buyers and your sellers. Awesome. I'll wait for at least 50% of you to vote. Excellent. About a tenth of you getting there. Great. Well done. Okay, the poll is going to be open for another 45 seconds. Keep them coming, just about 20 more of you to vote. We have just under 15 seconds left. Want to make sure and get a good understanding of where we are all at with our mindset with the current real estate industry changes. All right, 70% of you, that's excellent. So let us, looks like we're paused there for a bit. Okay, so let's look at some of these answers. So we're almost 50-50, well 60-40. Will the 2021 housing industry be a boom or crash? Look at that, you know, we're kind of neck and neck on that. Some of us think it's going to grow and boom and wow, we're going to be abundant with closing, listing and closing our deals. Then some of us think that it's going to slowly crash. Well, we'll talk about that in a little bit. With coronavirus on the rise, is the housing market weakening? Wow. Almost 60-40 on that as well. Yes and no. And we can see that quite a bit of us do miss interacting with our clients in person and really getting, you know, going into that shift of, you know, virtual collaborations. It is very difficult. We're not in class right now. We're not able to really truly assess people's body language, look them in the eyes and connect. Now we really have to make that extra effort to connect virtually. Are you optimistic? I'm glad to see that people are optimistic. I mean, there's still about, you know, 5 out of all of us here that's answered that isn't so optimistic. And it could be that, you know, that is not really so much optimism, but fear and concern and uncertainty about where do I go next? What do I do? And hopefully for those of you, especially once you leave here today, that may shift a little bit. And then we will see that, you know, just because of how the industry is, there's going to be quite a few of us that drop out, that we don't see this as a sustainable future for multiple reasons, which we will get into. All right, thank you so much for that. And as we go in here, if you can now shift to the chat feature and just start telling me what are some of your concerns right now. We just talked about perhaps the industry is weakening, especially for those of you who are not so optimistic. What are your concerns? So if you can start using the chat feature right now to the top or bottom of your screen, you should be able to see somebody wasn't able to see the poll. I'm not sure. Perhaps if you use a Mac, and sometimes that can pose a issue there. So on the chat feature, you should be able to click all panelists and attendees. Which question? The question is, what are your concerns right now? What are some of the things that's causing you anxiety? What are some of the things that you're looking into the future and thinking, wow, what's happening? Or even right now, what are you struggling with as an agent or as a broker? What are you struggling with? Thanks, Rodney. We'll start with yours. I'm mostly concerned about the support industry. Such industry has the banks, title companies. Yes, indeed, they are critical to our transactions, because if there's any delays, if they're overwhelmed, if they're also, you know, on their social distancing remote, we have to be taking their lead, especially with our expiry dates, our timelines. So indeed, come on, anybody else? Thanks for that, Rodney. Make sure you have your morning coffee going there. It's going to be an interactive webinar. Again, this is for your benefit. So the more interaction we have, you will definitely have some amplified benefit out of it. My chat feature is disabled. How about you try using the question and answer, perhaps? That would be another alternative. And that should be right next to participants, perhaps. Okay, so let's get going. As they come up, I'll address them. So some of the concerns that you're probably having include some of these here. The market has slowed down. Where does that leave me? We have seen that, especially when we just got into the COVID crisis with everybody on lockdown, that, you know, people were just kind of hanging out to see what's going to happen. Not to mention people who were moving or thinking of moving, the military especially, everybody became on lockdown, such that we really came to a screeching halt. There's hesitation from sellers. People are unsure, you know, am I going to be able to get people to come into my home? If I am still in my home, or if I have tenants in my home, what is that going to do with the health status of either myself or my tenants? And then buyers are like, okay, well, maybe, you know, people are on the brink of losing their job. Their hours have been significantly reduced. So the money that they initially had to purchase a house, the 10, the 20% down, now that is now a source of emergency funds to get them through the next several months. Even with the military population, those folks that do have the ability to put 0% down, now they are still stuck because they are, you know, in isolation, or they can't move. There's restrictions moving, PCSing, ETSing, all these things. So it's really restricted both our buyers and sellers. Also, people just have cold feet. They're not sure. This is a crisis. Some people have never experienced this. You know, building on resiliency is never a skill that we go out and we see. It typically happens, you know, you experience a situation and you learn to adapt and overcome, or you don't survive and you kind of succumb to the issue at hand. So a lot of people also have cold feet and like, I don't know what to do. You know, and as such, they're being more, you know, guarded with their funds. The investors also, who have a whole lot of funds too, are probably just sitting by waiting to see, because if we were to look at history, if you were to, and it's so important, I will add to that, that as an agent, you are supposed to look at your history and understand your trends. You know, I've come across several agents in the past 3 or 4 weeks when I was asking about the trends with these type of crises, looking especially at 2008 and even before that, but specifically at 2008 is from where I really started tracking it. And a lot of them is like, you know, I don't know. And I'm thinking, you are supposed to know this. Why? Because when your client comes to you, you can better address that. So if I were to say, you know, Rodney, tell me how the Guam market is. The last time we saw a crisis, how did the people react? How was the economy? What did the leadership do? How did the real estate fare? Similarly, if I go to any other agent in various states, especially as an investor amongst in the mainland, and I meet these agents, I ask them the same, because I'm going to do my research as well. But in the overall grand scheme of things, you are supposed to be able to give some sort of indication. Nobody is saying to be the economist, but certainly understanding, well, you know, we had this U curve and there was euphoria and then it crashed and there was quite a bit of despair and it took a while for the market to come back up. Or you can say, well, in Guam, you know, we're a pretty unique island. Even though we had this economic crash, financial crash in 2008, it didn't impact us as much because we're isolated. We have a lot of investors here. We have the military still coming and going. Those types of things you need to be able to articulate very well. Because again, especially if an investor now, they're looking at this and they're monitoring the situation and thinking now is a good time to invest. You want to be able to have that ammunition so that you can justify your position as well as help support that transaction as well. The other thing too is that, you know, especially with sellers or even you as an agent, you have to stock up on your supplies. You're getting familiar with what is PPE, understanding pandemics. If this was a healthcare class, I would tell you the difference between epidemics, endemics, and pandemics. It's like all these things that you've never been familiar with before. Now you have to learn that. You have to understand how to don and take off PPE. You have to know what's the differences in the, you know, as far as the contaminants that various masks would prevent from you inhaling, understanding isolation precautions, contact precautions. All these things have become so overwhelming for all of us. And of course, having to maintain that as well as being that source of hope for your buyers and sellers, that's quite a bit that we have to undertake. Not to mention now with our banks, as well as Rodney had pointed out with these other supporting services that we have, we've seen in any type of crisis that banks have become more stringent. Why? This is risk management for them. They themselves are suffering. People now are deferred loan payments. Potentially with the job market and unemployment, people can probably lose their homes. So banks now becoming more stringent, increasing credit scores, making sure that people are very well qualified before they actually give any loans. And then your overall operations. You, in addition to becoming familiar with the healthcare aspect of it, PPE, pandemic, learning the terminology, now you also have to become familiar with technology. First, I remember when I had this conversation with Miss Peggy about taking the pre-licensing class, we were concerned, how is this going to be received? Because it's not something that most of us have been familiar with. I've been in the online world for several years. I've been, you know, somewhat of a digital nomad. So this was my thing. So for me, it was very easy to transition. But with some students in different industries, not just with my real estate class, but you can see the hesitation and the fear and concern. Am I going to be able to navigate this? What do I do? What do I click on? I can't see anything. I don't have a laptop. I don't have a camera. All these things now become so stressful on us. We really don't know what we should be doing or what we should not be doing. In addition, we've had a lot of support with NAR and GAR telling us, you know, with supplying the coronavirus addendums and things like that, but you still have so much more on your plate so that you understand what you shouldn't be doing and what you should be doing. So these are the concerns I'm sure you've probably thought about, maybe not spend a lot of time on, but they are there in the back of your head kind of brewing with, okay, what do I do? Where do I go? So how has your operations changed? If we can start back on the chat, let me know what are some things that you have been doing. Perhaps you've been showing more homes virtually. Perhaps you're thinking of changing careers, completely getting out of real estate, or putting it on hold and coming back to it at a later date, just because perhaps things with your spouse has changed. Perhaps you were working this part-time so that you can see the kids during the day. You can take care of the kids to go to school, and then doing this when they're at school. Now you're pretty much having to homeschool them or facilitating that process. So perhaps you would be changing careers, who knows? You know, it's become so difficult for many of us. I've had my children jump in on meetings and, you know, this is the way it is. This is our new normal. And it has become very difficult for many of us to work remotely with children, with having to maintain the household, with having the amount of resources. If you have 1 or 2 laptops and you have everybody working from home, you have a spouse that also has a demanding career. So how is that all going to play in as we go forth from here? Well, some of you may think, well, you know, it's going to change. I can settle down, I can hunker down now. But some of us may not have that luxury. We may really have to think about, is this going to be sustainable for me? Can I do this? And can I not only do it for sustainability financially for myself, but can I provide a good job for my client? And especially with our industry where customer service and relationship is building, these are some of the things we really need to think about. And you all are being very, very quiet. Please, by all means, use that chat feature, the question and answer. I'm paying attention to both screens here. So what about the economic changes? Have you looked into that some more so you can truly understand what the future is? I know it's very dynamic. Things are happening on a day-to-day basis. We've seen changes from our leadership. We're looking at it from the president. We're looking at it from, you know, the research. And so all these things are happening that we're really not sure what is the impact. Some people talk about the recovery is going to be similarly to 2008, where it was this U recovery. Some people think it's more of a V recovery. So which are you? Because that's really going to help you understand what your future in the career would look like. So for example, when we look at what is the current concern, how would the industry be affected? We see that we're kind of a, you know, almost neck and neck, still 60-40. I'm sure if everybody had actually voted, we'd probably be at a tie there. Where is the industry going? Every other person that you're talking to, they're either very hopeful or they're very depressed about it. But again, looking at history, I'm a big proponent of past performance is not an indicator of future performance. But when it comes to the economy, it's very cyclical. We're always going to have ups and downs, ups and downs. But a key thing, we have had, you know, trauma with some of these down times, but in every traumatic experience, I want you to think about this. Every traumatic experience, we have had some growth. After a typhoon, after a hurricane, after an economy crash, after death, after all these things that have been really traumatic to us in some form or fashion as an individual, as an industry, or as a country as a whole, we have always had growth. So with trauma, there has always been post-traumatic growth, not always post-traumatic stress, but growth associated. So whether it is a U shape or a V shape, that growth really will be, you know, depending on if it's going to be exponential or if it's going to take its time. That's really what the V and the U is telling us. So for some of you who may be relatively new in the industry, I'll just kind of quickly highlight. The U is, for example, in 2008, we saw a financial crisis. So everything went down. It took a while to recover. That's why we have this U. It's a little bit of a prolonged period. People lost their homes, foreclosures, short sales, all of that before it steadily started to increase. And that took, you know, probably about 5 to 6 years, well, maybe on the 2008, maybe right about the 4th to the 5th year is when people really started to get their footing, when we saw overall some growth. Now, again, I'm talking about on the national level as well. Guam is very, very different. We have a whole microclimate of real estate changes here. So we've been fortunate. We haven't seen, and based on the history, I told you I've only been here for 5 years. I dug into the data some, and it did not seem that there was that much of a crash compared to on the mainland. So we were shielded a bit. We felt it. There were some job losses. You know, the economy declined a bit. We also, because of our supply and demand factors here, we sustained that a bit. Now, the V structure is where we go to a screeching halt, a crash, and then we recover. The difference is this time it's not a financial crisis, it's a health crisis that of course had financial implications. So once this is over, can we recover? Because before, with the financial crisis, we really didn't have options of putting mortgages on deferred, banks working with us to put this at the end of the loan. We didn't have stimulus checks and all this money being injected into the economy. So that's the main difference between, you know, the last crisis and this crisis. It's a pandemic, a healthcare crisis. So it is possible that we can recover and recover quickly, but either way, you should be prepared for it. So let us go into a quick poll right now, another poll for you to talk about the economy. And let me get that here. Okay, so the next one, we're going to talk about your experience. So that would help me understand more of the history I give you with the economy. So let's look at this here. Quick 2 questions for you. Have you ever worked in a down market, for example, a crisis? That may be, you know, several years ago, it may be in the 90s, it could be before then. Look at that. Excellent, you guys are on top of this. I got about 1/3 of you voted already. Keep it coming. Keep it coming, 50%. We got about 45 seconds there. It's just quick 2 questions. I'd like to see at least 75% of you voting. Almost there, perfect. Okay, well done. So we have, let's see, I can share the results with you. Thanks for participating. So we've had about same thing, 60% almost of you working in a down market. And we have about half and half with less than 5 years and more than 5 years. And I'm glad to see that, because hopefully at the end of this too, we can have more collaboration amongst each other. For those newbies there, you're probably not sure how to even think about what a down market is and use your prior experience. So for those of you with more than 10 years, if you've had experience with previous crises, then you kind of know what to do and what to expect. For those of you who are new, this would be definitely beneficial to help understand what you should be doing. Okay, so let's look at this some more. So when we look at these economic changes, again, I told you history has some parts to play, right? It may not be the same, but what is the biggest thing? We are going to see some recovery. That recovery is twofold, or maybe threefold. It's going to be either where it's in the benefit for buyers, or it's going to be in the benefit for investors. And then, of course, not in the benefit for sellers, depending on the situation. So let me explain that some more. If the economy is going to take this U-shape approach here on the right, then what are we going to see? Unfortunately, it's a capitalistic society. So that means the people who have the money is going to capitalize on the people who need to sell off. People who are going to end up foreclosing, people who have lost their jobs. Unfortunately, it's just the way society works, right? So those people who have to give up their homes and give it up for pennies on the dollar, or maybe 75% on the dollar or less, those investors who've had cash sitting, whether it's local investors or foreign investors, they're going to start scooping this up. Why? Because we know real estate, it's always going to appreciate, so there's going to be some significant growth for them. They're buying pennies on the dollar, they're going to see a lot of growth coming in. Now, if it is the V-shaped, it will be in the benefit of both the buyers and sellers. Why is that? Well, we have seen right now that the mortgage rates are phenomenally low. So when people come out of this, you know, kind of chicken without a neck phase of, I don't know what to do. Where do I go? How high do I jump? What is my job doing? What is my family doing? Then they would realize this is the time to capitalize on getting a home if they have the cash in the bank. And because we have been able, some of the population have been able to sustain their jobs, and some industries, healthcare, you know, there's a huge influx of people coming in, then you have in some areas people getting jobs, and as such they will end up getting you know, funds that they can use to put a home down, 0%, 3%, FHA, all these types of things. So there could potentially be a big market sector for you to go after, whether that is local or, again, getting your investors. The investors with cash are going to capitalize on that. And then your sellers are going to realize that, yes, there is going to be a market because the rates are down, so people are wanting to go and capitalize on this. So either way, we see what? We see that it is hopeful for our industry. For those of you who may not think that it's very hopeful, it could just because you can see the trees through the fog, and that's why hopefully at the end of this you'll be able to get a little bit more insight. So let's again focus on this history. So traumatic growth, right? So we've had a period where we've increased. Now this is kind of on the national level, just looking at roughly the last 20 years. So we've had an increase. Wow, things were going great. We were really increasing as a real estate industry, and then boom, the crash hit us. We've lost our homes with foreclosure, huge job losses. We really suffered in this time period. But traumatic growth, right? So here is, of course, the PTSD type behavior, and then here is the post-traumatic growth phenomenon, where even though we've suffered significantly there, we have grown quite a bit. Look at the national average as well. It's grown significantly. If you're an investor in stocks, you would see that as well. So here, we're still waiting for the data to come out to have some solid. Everybody's still speculating it's V-shaped, it's U-shaped. So we may see that this may dip significantly and then it's going to come back, or it may be like the 2008 to 2012 time period where it's kind of lagging and then it's going to come back. Either way, what are we going to see? Growth. Now with Guam, you know, we did not see this huge dip here as we did with the 2008 crisis. So we're still in a unique position. And keep in mind too, we're still going to have the military buildup coming unless, of course, you know, things go awry politically. And we're still going to be on the target for foreign investors coming in. So what is our new normal looking like now? What do you think is your new normal? And you've gone back very quiet here. Let's see if I can get you on the chat again. I have a hand raised. You can go ahead and put your mic on, and let's see. Miss Jean, can you go ahead and ask? Oh, your mic is off, but your hand is raised. I just gave you the ability to ask your questions, so go ahead. If you are talking, I'm not hearing you. Jean and Hirokazu, I saw that you had your hand up, so if you need to ask something, please go ahead. So what is your new normal like? Can't chat on the screen, I'm not sure, sorry. Okay, oh, here we go. Awesome, now I'm seeing everything. So what is your new normal like? Or maybe let me pause for a second, go back here. I'm now seeing your questions come through. Okay, so the lending guidelines, yes, we've talked about that. The implications for commercial real estate, very good one, Jeff. Why? Because a lot of businesses are potentially going to go out of business. We're going to have potentially maybe these buildings come up for sale. Landlords cannot sustain unless we see, right now we have GIDA funds that, you know, people can apply for, but is it going to be sufficient? My take, Jeff, especially on the implications for commercial real estate, is how agile business leaders can be. Stepping back and looking, I think there was a lot of room that people could have shifted their business. Unfortunately, not many took advantage of that. But, and it could be just be because there's not a whole lot of support for how do we be more agile. So until we move, until business owners get more educated on how they can evaluate their business and be agile, maybe the implications for commercial is not going to be as great. But we also have to look at people are taking things virtually now. So what does that mean for commercials? That we're going to have more of this Amazon, eBay type platform for commercial business, or in a society like us where we're very relationship oriented, we'll probably end up going back to commercial, traditional commercial as we know it, because for one, we're not a technology-oriented society. The infrastructure isn't there to support us. And it's just who we are. This is our nature. Island culture from the Caribbean, and the same way people want to see that mom and pop, even though Amazon, eBay, Walmart.com, all these places are available online, people still think it's not the same. I want to go to the store. So we could probably see that resurrecting in the next couple months. Jane, with the low inventories of the houses for sale, yes, well, that's actually pretty good for us, because once we come back to our new normal, it means that at least for those who are looking, there is going to be a market, at least for the sellers, and then potentially local people as they want to build and invest. We can see that recovering. Now that's going to take a while, because we're looking at, you know, the issues with the H-1 visas, having labor pool, and those, again, until we address that as an island, you know, we can be providing training for local people. I mean, we are going to see some growth, but the question that comes out of your concern is, how long is that going to take? How long can we actually come up with, you know, all these different programs? I work with I'm on a volunteer with the governors, what is it, the UN sustainability initiatives, and I know there's a lot of talk about the different programs that we could implement here for sustainability, and something like that will definitely support the low inventory. Okay, so let's continue on to this topic here, where what is the new normal? Let's see here. I found it very helpful to provide any sort of certainty during these uncertain times. I look up, very good. Don't have your name there, but now is the time to be understanding economic trends, looking at different states, how they have recovered, what you can do. So that would help us understand what our new normal is. And especially we're close to Asia, that's where our investors are going to come from to look and see what's happening in their side of the world. We know already places like Hong Kong, Singapore, all these places, China, their real estate is very expensive, and these people have what? They have a lot of moolah in their pocket, looking to invest, looking to capitalize, looking to grow. So we are certainly an eye for them. Okay, so yes, let's go into what are the new normal health concerns, especially if you've had even, you know, common ailments like diabetes for one, hypertension, all these things that can put you more at risk. Now you have to take even more precautions for yourself to determine, you know, can I sustain this? Is this acceptable for my health? Not to mention, you may be young, healthy, robust, or older, healthy, and robust, but guess what? You have younger kids at home, you have mom and pop to go home to, grandparents to go home to. So all those are concerns about, if I continue this, what am I bringing home? And trust me, working in healthcare, where, you know, I'm exposed to diseases, TB, MRSA, all these things. My normal was coming home and undressing at the door, having different shoes, taking off my clothes, going straight to a shower, and especially if I had a nasty day at work. So I understand that, you know, that coming into healthcare, that was like, is this what I signed up for? You know, not realizing that I'm helping sick people, but what am I coming home with at the end of the day? What am I passing on to my family? Let's see, the new normal would be cautious in investment and spending. Rosemary, I actually think that it's not so much caution, but looking for the opportunities. Think about this. I'll use shopping as an example. So you go to Ross and you see 90% off, 75% off. Most of us are not forward thinking, especially if you're from an island culture. We live today for tomorrow. You know, hang loose, this is easy. Don't worry about anything. Don't worry, be happy. So most of us don't have the forward thinking culture to say, you know what, that 90%, I need my Christmas tree for next year. I need my winter clothes. I need my summer clothes, all these things. So we look at it and we look at the cash on hand. We look at the space and say, you know, it's 90% off, but I'm going to bypass it. And then you come back and you see 75% off, you see 60 and so forth, until it's only 10 and 15% off. And you're like, you know what? The other day, a couple months ago, I needed that. It was 9% off, and now I'm paying a bit higher price. So similarly with investments, what it boils down to is your risk appetite, as well as how much cash you have for investing. So when I talk about risk appetite, that you look at it, due to the anxiety of the market, especially people who are coming closer to retirement, if they've lost significantly, if you've seen home prices decline significantly, that would create fear. If you understand the cyclical nature and you know that this is going to recover, you look at the number of years ahead of you, the investment that's going to increase, the trends, all these things, I will tell you that that being cautious is more out of fear than looking at it as opportunity. And of course, that can be a whole nother discussion. We can go really in depth in that. Agents, like, do we expect interest rates to remain low? So on the new normal, think about it again. Look at history. When we were really becoming green, talking about using electric and hybrid cars and solar panels, what happened? Do you know what happened? We had a lot of people giving rebates, right? The federal government was giving rebates about this, really encouraging and stimulating for us to shift our behavior. Similarly, the US Federal Reserve has the ability to stimulate the economy. So, you know, for the interest rates, that is going to be their key to stimulating the economy. Industries are thriving. I mean, I also help with the HR side of it, and people were like, oh, nobody is hiring in this time frame. And I'm like, no, this is so wrong. You're using a traditional old mindset. The businesses that are going to keep going, there is jobs around, there is money floating around. So you just have to understand that aspect of it. So yes, I think interest rates will remain low to really stimulate, but there is going to come a saturation point where, you know, once the stock market starts going up and we see the economy starts to thrive again, then of course, you know, if people who have money, we're not going to want to stimulate the economy anymore. We're going to sustain it and make money off of it. One more before we continue. The new normal to me is constantly researching and looking how I can make a step forward. That is exactly it. And if you're doing that, you are on the right track. What does that mean? That is somebody who has that agile mindset, and we'll talk about that here in a second. So the new normal is just as we're talking about, what is your operation looking like? You are going to make more, how do I put this? You're going to capitalize on your time, especially if your health is of concern to you. You're not going to just come, you know, jump in the car and start showing homes anymore like you used to. Before, you probably had 30 buyers, potential buyers. You'll go around like nothing. Call you up, can you show me this home today? Sure. And you just continue, you know, going around, not really screening your people as much as you should. So with the new normal, you are going to now really strategize what your operation is going to be. Why? Because we have to be concerned with health, cost especially. So we're not just looking at, you know, do you have a pre-qualified letter? What is your income? What's your credit score? But I now want to see a pre-approval letter. Why? Because we're not going to waste time with people who are just kind of, they're fearful, but they haven't made the commitment. You want people who are serious buyers or who are committed to this, people who are motivated to buy. So when you have this pre-approval, you can now go to your seller and say, I have somebody who's very interested, because it's going to take more effort to sanitize, disinfect. You also have to spend money on your PPE. Some of these things aren't cheap at all. So having to keep donning and putting on and getting your seller to support disinfecting the home and making appointments, all those things now we're going to really tighten that up, not just for pre-qualification, but pre-approval, so that screening process becomes even more important. And then a lot of us probably were before reliant on leads coming in, and now because we're kind of gone into this lull, the key thing that we have all realized, even from probably your personal life, is the importance of building these relationships in the new normal. It's no longer about selling, it's really about building relationships and letting people know that you're there. It's thinking outside the box and going the extra mile. I just heard about this, this is on the state side, somebody who was actually, they really went the extra mile. The homeowners, the mom and dad, were fine with their health status, but they had a very ill or health compromised child. So everything was done through the windows, really thinking about how do you support your buyers or your sellers, because they, again, they're very fearful of what's happening. So now you have to really go out there and build those relationships. A key thing that we probably would have overlooked in old traditional method is communicating. We're back and forth, we're getting those leads, but now it's even more important that we communicate, letting people know the status. As Rodney pointed out earlier, all those supporting services is going to have an impact on closing date. So keeping people abreast of what's going on is going to be even more important. It seems overwhelming, but I'll give you a strategy at the end to tell you what you can do. Giving people information that would give them insights of, what's going on with the market, just as I explained to you those economic trends. Go put together a quick 5 main points, or a quick brochure or something that's giving pros and cons about this to help quell your buyers and sellers' fears. And then just an email blast, you have your contacts, or even as you're building those relationships, let people know what you are doing or what your broker is doing, so that they can still support if there is any need to list the property, or of course if people are looking to buy. They want to know what you're doing to help with their concerns, their health, what's going on in the market, if you're still in business, if you're waiting. So all those things, instead of just waiting for people to assume or figure that out, you communicate that first, just as that person was saying, staying a step ahead. So what do sellers want in our market now? Post-COVID, sellers want to have more virtual showings, sanitizing their property, and that we're probably having limited open homes, okay? So that, again, if people are coming, and now with more data that shows COVID virus can rest on inert surfaces like your countertops and stuff for days, or even the tops of food boxes, your grocery bags. So all those things are creating more anxiety. So you speak to their need. If they want more virtual showings because of their concern of the health aspect, then you should be able to do with that. And then for sellers as well, they want you to capitalize on social media, multiple streams that you can advertise their property, so that it's not sitting on the market too long. And of course, you doing what you can to have those virtual open homes, and then of course video tours. So here's an example of technology. And before we get into that, let's use one more poll here. Let's see, how good are you at technology? Oops, I got it here, sorry. How good are you at technology? All right, I got a third of you. Be as honest as you can. This is all anonymous. All right, we're almost at our 75% mark here. Excellent, keep it coming. Another 15 seconds and I'm going to end the poll. Excellent. Okay, 3 more of you. Come on, give me some answers here. Almost there. Couple more. 10 seconds. Excellent. Thank you. End the poll and let's look at the results. How good are you at using technology? Now, this is a very subjective question. So 68% of us think that we're really good. And I'm sure if I were to drill down into that 68%, a little bit more, we probably would have half of the people realizing they're really not good at technology. Technology is so wide. And why I say that, not to be facetious or anything, but I thought I was a pro at technology. I told you I've been working online for several years. I know quite a bit. But there's things that are coming out that are beneficial to, to help support your online work. So unless you're keeping up with that and you're trying different strategies, you're using the most up-to-date, not the technology from 5 years ago, but technology that's happening now, that is when you're really on top of it. You're using multiple platforms, you're reaching out, even with your virtual showings, all those things, you have to keep building on. So I'm glad to see that quite a bit of us think that we're good. For those of you who are not good at technology, don't be too worried about that. There's a lot of ways that you can learn online, that you can practice if you want to, but keep in mind too, that you also have clients that are in your similar situation that don't use technology. So if that's the case, then you know where your market is. It would probably be for those people that don't want to be involved in it. They want to maintain that one-on-one communication once the market comes back. You can still get on the phone and you can have that conversation with them. You can still prospect like that, whereas others, give me quick on social media, let me see a video tour, all those things that is a different market as well. And yes, we have increased our technology use during COVID. And some of you, you may have had some really good experiences. You may have had some embarrassing moments with it. Some, oh my gosh, very frustrating and stressful moments. So some of us are pros at it. I think I'm a pro, but I'm always still learning. Some of us are still learning. And again, there are multiple resources. If you have teenagers in your family, I highly suggest you tap to that potential. Especially, it's a free resource. They will give you some good understanding of different markets or different ways you can tap into markets, okay? And the use of technology as the new norm. Yes, technology is here to stay. Definitely. For those of you who don't think so, I wish we can have a round table on that. But to some degree, I do see what you're saying. Technology has definitely taken over, but there's going to be a subsection of people that don't want to use technology. But overall, technology is here to stay. In all industries, we have seen it. It's permeating everywhere. So it is here to stay. And we're seeing more and more increased use of 3D tours for the homes, people using their 360 camera and getting those virtual reality tours to where, you can put on a 3D goggle and really feel like you're there. So that is, you know, staying ahead of the curve. Now, the other thing is leveraging social media. Let me see if I had one more poll for you here. I believe so. Yeah, let's just do one more before we start getting into the strategies. So how do you leverage social media? What platform do you use currently? Based on these answers, I can see potentially we can have a leveraging social media class. Okay, I got a third of you. We got about another 30 seconds. All right, getting there, 25 seconds or so. Wow, it looks to be like Google is on the top here. Let's see. Okay, 8 seconds. I'm going to be closing the poll. I'm losing some of you participating. Let's see. Excellent. Here we go. We got close to our 75%. So let's look at the results here. So we have quite the spread. Google being, of course, the highest, Instagram next, and all of the above. Well done. Will you use social media more? Yes. And for those of you who are still getting to learn it, you can see the importance that social media, learning social media, different platforms. And nobody is saying to go out there and use multiple. I learned this the hard way. It is just too much for you. There's ways you can automate using social media, but I think at the end of the day, unless you have a team that supports your social media posting, I would highly suggest choose one or two where you're typically finding your clients and stick to that and get very, very good at it. If you don't have a significant following right now, that is something that you consider starting to build in this downtime, or if you find yourself having downtime, because again, how do you get leads? Generating your network, right? You're building upon those networks. So you spend time building your client base or your potential prospects, and then you post something, they see it. I've seen multiple people use several different platforms, so they're always in your face where you are. And I've also seen people be very focused, but when you are focused, what happens? If you're on Facebook all the time, then it's only the people on Facebook that's going to see your post, right? So that comes back to learning where your market is and where your potential clients are. And the searching for yourself, the 19% of you that said you have not searched for yourself, that would be the first thing that you do when you leave this session today. You want to make sure that people, you know, if you do show up, that people are saying good things about you. You want to see what you're associated with. If you're supposed to be an agent or a broker, you want people to know this. You don't want to be associated with a job you had 10 years ago. So if people are looking for you, you're trying to build yourself, then you should have an online presence, okay? Let's see. Okay, so how do you leverage social media? Again, choosing one, learning about that, and go with it, because we have seen billions as well as millions, depending on the platform, use social media. So you're going to have a lot of people at your service or at your leisure for free. The other thing is leverage your ability to understand these different software a bit more. So this is an example of one that I'm talking about. So that's what a virtual tour looks like. If it's not something that you aren't doing at the moment, something to consider. It looks intimidating. It took me all of about, I don't know, half hour to understand how to use it, to get the software. And again, with this digital age, there is a lot of information online on YouTube, so many tutorials that you can use that would certainly help you. All right, now for the buyers, they are too looking at these virtual tours. At least they can start, start looking now. They may not have to make the decision right now, but if you provide these virtual tours, these 3D tours, at least you are engaging and you're building those contacts and you're following them through. A lot of times here for us, sometimes what I see with our culture is that we get so overwhelmed with, so many clients, or maybe doing this part-time, that we don't follow through with our clients. And remember, again, depending on the culture and your clientele, some people, to go from looking to make that decision is often a long period. So you can follow through, and guess what? You can automate all those things as well. Remote transactions, people who have orders to come to Guam, or people that you have big industries here, you have United, you have GMH, GRMC, all these industries that bring people from off island, you can tap into that market as well, because people are going to start looking. There's multiple Facebook groups. Hey, I'm looking to move from Guam, again, kind of keeping the pulse of what's happening. They too want to use technology. I know I'm local here, and when I'm ready to put in an offer, any agent that's asking me to sign paperwork, it's like, can we just do this via DocuSign or some e-platform? Because that's what, again, in this, not only we have a health crisis on hand, but a lot of us too, because of timing, because of family commitments, we want to have these options. Not all your clients are going to want that, but you have to be able to, almost like a Costco type approach. You have two or three solid options that you're providing so that you can accommodate your buyers. I talked about the military coming, these industries, having those remote settlements. Start, looking into that option if you haven't done that before. And then understanding, going back to the first comment of, you have to let your buyers and your and the other agents that you're working with, making sure that they realize that these closing dates are going to be dynamic and very flexible, because we have to wait on people. It's not the regular norm. So even though we may want to close in 45 to 60 days, that may even push it out a little bit more, okay? And then again, just as I told you earlier on, keep them updated, communicate, communicate, communicate. All right, so let's wrap this up with, what are some things for you? What are you looking for? You're looking to make sure that you're keeping your client base open, that you're still having the ability to show virtually properties, to discuss the properties with your clients, and no more back and forth. I'm telling you, you really need to streamline your process. There are apps like this, Calendly, that you can send your client or your customer this so that they can see when you're available. No more back and forth. I'm here at 9 p.m. No, I can't do this. Streamline your process so you have time to develop your social media, your technology, all these other things. The other thing you can do is look into these signing options, and NAR has quite a bit of plans for members. Now, I'm not advocating for DocuSign. However, I've used them quite a bit, so I know I'm more familiar with it. But offer this availability for your clients. Also, you can, if you're a Google type person, Folio is a good extension that would support keeping everything kind of in alignment. And you can see here, you can organize it, and it would set up a timeline, tell you when the offer is accepted, the deadlines, and everything. So you're keeping it focused for yourself. A lot of times we're kind of scattered, right? Or we have to take our information and now put it in a different timeline, so here it is, everything together. This is not the only extension out there. If you have not done this, And if you do, you would go berserk. Tell me, you go into the Google store and you look for all the extensions that can help make your life more productive. I mean, there's so many things. I'm like a kid in a candy store when I go there. But I can tell you there are several apps there that has made my life better, has streamlined my operations. So you can look to see what fits your needs. And I was telling you about automating with your Gmail. Oh gosh, I forgot the one that I just, MailChimp is one that you can use. And you know, so when you get new inquiries, you have an email that goes and it attaches all your documents. So like if you're talking about post-COVID operations, what to look for as a buyer, seller, all those things can go, and you can do that while you sleep. So again, automation is key to in this industry. So what is a success? We talked about this briefly with a comment, your agility, even for business owners. How well you think outside the box, how resilient you are to kind of hunker down and know that recovery is coming. In the meantime, what is this? This is preparation phase for you. So for example, look at agriculture. We don't always have abundance, right? We plant the seed and we wait. So I'm going to ask you, what are the seeds that you are planting for your new normal? Is that your social media presence? Is that your brand? Is that your understanding of technology? Is that your research? Is that looking for new clients? Those are all the seeds that you're planting. You should have been doing this several months ago. It's okay if you haven't been doing that. There's no better time than now. So you develop a plan of this is what you want to do. So you're planting those seeds so you can see the abundance, the benefits of what you've done, these seeds grow in the next few months or even years. And don't be, especially for those of you who are unsure about the industry, don't be super concerned that your growth may be slow. That, you know, we can talk about multiple streams of income, passive income, that sort of thing. But I want to remind you too, if you know the story of bamboo, the Chinese bamboo, you know, bamboo grows, and then all of a sudden it shoots up. So it's because what you're doing, your seeds that you're planting, the fertilizer that you're doing, all those things impact your agility and your resilience. Also, now is the time to be creative. It's no longer traditional models. It's you have to look outside and stretch your imagination. If you have a hard time with that, then you look and you capitalize on your strengths and see, especially as somebody saying, look at what others are doing, look at what you're really good at and how you can amplify that. Why is that so important? Because so many people are not aware of their strengths. What do I do in this industry? How do you do that? You can do two things. You can look at a pestle analysis and a SWOT analysis. And again, I'm giving you, this is a 50,000 foot view. You're going to now take this at the end and dissect this bit by bit, see what parts are more speaking to you and work on that. So the two main things you can look at, the pestle and the SWOT. The pestle is the environmental. You remember I started with the economy and the history. That's looking at the political climate, the economic climate, the social technology, the laws, the environment. You're looking at everything. That is crucial to you as an agent. So you can see what is potentially coming and shift in that area. Your SWOT, even more important for you. If you don't want to, if you're not sure about the pestle and you just want to ignore that for now, you're thinking your broker can support you with that, the SWOT is even more critical for you because here you could identify what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are. Now, from, you know, this would require quite a bit of insight for yourself. Somebody, there we go, I got you. Your SWOT analysis, if it's one thing that you take away from here is to go back and do this right now on yourself. Well, Google yourself first, and then this would be the second one. Why? Because now if you're not good at technology and everybody's going to technology, if you think that is a weakness that you want to improve, by all means. If you think it is a threat and it's not something that you can improve, then you try to shift and see where your opportunity is. Maybe it is with those traditional sellers. Maybe it's now looking at people who are, who are not into technology, estates, just really looking and seeing where your market would be, connecting with people old school way, picking up the phone and connecting with them versus sending an email or being on Twitter or doing a Facebook Live. Because at the end of the day, if you're doing a Facebook Live, only the people on Facebook will be seeing your stuff. And I know my kids, they always say, Mom, Facebook, if you want to get into the young and hip population, Facebook is not the place to be. So learning to see where your market is and understanding where you need to improve, where you can amplify your strength and truly capitalize on that. So this is what the SWOT analysis would look like, understanding the strengths, weakness, opportunities, and threats. Right now, the threat is we don't know what post-COVID really new normalcy is going to look at. All these are assumptions. But at the same time, with everything, when we're doing risk management, when we're looking at a project, we're looking at assumptions. Most times we should be operating under assumptions. If this, then that. Again, you see how I'm trying to get you to think really expansive outside of the box, and learn different ways that you can now see the industry through different lens of viewing the industry. So what is your opportunities and what is your strengths would be the two key areas for you to focus on. Why is this so important? There is almost 90 plus of us here. All of us have different strengths. There is enough real estate market to go around, different customers that would gel better with us, different opportunities, different markets. So all of us have different strengths we can capitalize on. And unfortunately, most of us have no clue what we're good at. We don't sit and take an inventory of what am I good at, what are my talents, and what knowledge do I need. And this is important so that when you realize, for example, I need to go learn about these extensions, or I need to learn about 3D virtual showings, I need to learn more about COVID and the impact on health. You can find out where the opportunities are for you to increase your knowledge and skills. And then where do we start? We just really starts at your talent. What are you good at? Are you good at connecting with people? Are you good at seeing in the future, strategizing? Are you good at the technology? Are you not good at those things so that you can see what you need to develop? So what is next? What am I going to leave you with? Well, I'm going to leave you with several strategies of how you can develop a plan. Why plan? Because how we're going to steer the ship. How are you going to navigate your future? Your plan, we're not going to be, militant about it. It has to be A and B and C. You're now going to learn how to be agile. You don't have to have plan B, C, and D, but you have to have those assumptions so that you can understand at any one point things can turn. But you need to have a plan so that you know where to go next. What is your business looking like? Who is your clients? What are your goals right now? And based on that, what do you need? Do you need those skills and knowledge? And who do you need? For those of you who are just getting started, we have people who are here 10 years. Is it now more so, instead of competition, we're collaborating more so that we can all amplify ourselves? So looking at maybe mentors, coaches, just people to gather with that you may need more support. And then just as with your SWOT, you pause and you identify what your life priorities are, who you are, where you're going, and how do you get there, bridging all these together. Why? Because now, if, for example, the who am I have now become an agent that now has to support kids learning at home and a husband that works full-time from home. Am I able to sustain my career? Maybe I do need to shift. What is the career market looking at? Maybe I need to pause and build these skills so when it's coming back, I'm out there in full force. I'm making the connections. I'm looking at the landlords for the commercial places and making those connections, because you know what? When maybe some people, they don't even want to be in the market anymore. They just want to sell everything. So you start building your pipeline, or you start building your knowledge so that you can be ready, right? How many years does it take to build a spaceship? For what? 10 seconds of liftoff. So you're building, you're deepening your roots right now. So when you have that liftoff, you have a very successful liftoff. So your strategy, be a problem solver. Tap into your databases, your people who are in isolation right now, reach out to them. The people who are doing Airbnb and maybe they bought properties. Airbnb just laid off a bunch of people. Maybe they're just waiting for the market to see where it's going, but don't wait for them to decide whether or not they're going to sell. Start building your connections now. The same thing, landlords. You know, I don't want to deal with this headache anymore. People don't have money, they're unemployed. People may be willing, landlords may be willing to get rid of their property. You do not know that until you connect with them. At your education, I am very thrilled to see so many of you here. So yes, you're looking at filling yourself more so that you understand better what you need to do. And then so you know how to work your business. Stop the traditional methods, or maybe I shouldn't be so harsh. Consider your traditional methods and consider where the industry is going. You may need now to really get in on that technology as we talked about, but guess what? Don't be too harsh on yourself, or don't be too concerned that you can't do it. Outsource it. Get somebody with a lovely voice, or get somebody who knows this, and you know, be able. You're supporting people with employment as well. They can do a voiceover for you. They can put your videos together. They can do editing. I mean, I have a lot of people that they send me their video. Can you edit this to me? Can you compress it? So either because they don't have the time or they just don't care to understand how to do it. So consider outsourcing it. Look at expenses that can be cut. Before we were printing, you know, many different advertisements. You know, we were just jumping into the car and showing people Guam is small. Yeah, you know, the gas prices are still high, but look and see what you can do to start cutting your expenses. One thing that this COVID crisis has shown us is that we need to make sure that we do have ample savings, at least a 6-month saving that can tide ourselves over, because we never know when something can hit us. So look and see what you can do. That's the third thing you're going to do, is sit and itemize everything that you do when you're showing or you're listing, and look and see what the expenses is that you can cut. So for example, if you are showing homes quite a bit and you're spending a lot on PPE, then that may be an indicator for you to really support doing those virtual showings. You can show 100 clients that, and then you can narrow it down to your top 5. You're not actually going into the home and donning that PPE and you know, having that wastage with money. So look at everything that you do and put a price to it, and see, you know, where you can cut those expenses. You cannot stop working. It is not the time to stop working and stick your head in the sand. This is priming the soil. This is tilling. You're sowing your seeds for when that growth comes. And it could be multiple industry. And I don't mean to sound like a Pollyanna. By all means, that's not what I'm saying, that, you know, there's going to be tremendous growth. But you have to be able to be resilient and first decide if this is what you're going to do. If you're going to stick with this career, then this is the time you should be building, learning, developing yourself in multiple ways. So you cannot stop working and say, yep, when the new normal comes back, when we're ready to go, business is operating, then I'm going to go back out there. Then for some of you who have been ahead of the game, those people are going to be multiple steps ahead of you, and you're going to be trailing behind. It's like going into the store again. They got the 90% and you only got the full price or the 15% off. And I cannot stress this enough. Help each other, collaborate, find people and see how you can, everybody's going to have different strengths. So see how you can amplify each other to have mutual gains for everybody. Collaboration. And then you have to shift your mindset from sales to service. It's no longer about, hey, I am an agent, I'm a broker, we offer you this service. It's about stepping back and building those relationships. The empathy, the concern, the genuinity of your relationship, that is what matters now, and that is more meaningful than telling somebody, hey, I'm Nicole, you know, I've been doing real estate transactions for so many years, I'm the best. That now, it does not matter. Between your potential clients and your existing clients, as well as your past clients. For you to come up and call your previous client and say, hey, you know, I'm just checking on you, making sure that all is well. Again, that is, you know, they will now still continue to think about you and refer business to you as necessary. And then lastly, look and see what you can offer in your community. I know some of us are struggling. We have financial issues. We're dealing with kids. We're dealing with significant others. We just have so much on our plate. But you know, once you're showing up for your community and your name is out there and you're a resource for them, they're also going to remember you. Again, this is the time for those genuine interactions of service more than sales. It's not the time to be selling. And on that note, it would be less FaceTime like that, you know, coming in with your clients at the showing, and more getting on the phone, using social media for that type of FaceTime. So it's not the one-on-one FaceTime that we're familiar with, but becoming more comfortable. If you're not, you know, you don't like looking into a camera, or you're not sure, or you think that, you know, you're just not camera material, or you can't really build conversations, then get onto a class, or, you know, find a mentor who can help support building those interactions. Create an optimistic mindset that post-traumatic growth, we're always going to have recovery. We just don't know how fast or how slow that is going to be. But when you create an optimistic mindset, that is the direction where your behavior and actions go. It's kind of, try it and you'll see, you know, when you're negative, then everything around you looks negative. Everything becomes a problem. But when you're positive, you're going to quell those fears. You're going to see it differently. You're going to have more grit to hunker down and dig your heels deep. You're going to find yourself more creative, and you can look at different ways of doing things, you know, becoming more innovative and more, just being more creative. It's like, this may be quite different for you. You have to sit and stretch your mind, look at what other people are doing, keeping a pulse on the industry, sitting back and thinking, if I were in their shoes, what would matter? Or just having the conversation, you know, with potential clients, or just putting a poll on social media. What will you do? What matters most to you? Get familiar with all of that so you can be now going back to service, be the problem solver, and offer those innovative and creative solutions for your potential people or your existing clients. So I will end with this. This is your opportunity. You need to keep a pulse on the market. You need to keep a pulse on what other people are doing. That could be stateside, that could be local as well. Just get a feel, that pestle analysis, get a feel of what others are doing. See what, you know, the more that information that you gather, the better you can streamline your process and understand what your strategy is going to be. Capitalize on the people who are leaving. That is the agents who are leaving. If they're now leaving a gap, if they couldn't be agile, or if their circumstance just doesn't allow them to continue in the industry. It's not that we're saying, oh, you're gone, we're going to be a leech and grab onto your people. We have to sympathize with them. But some people just cannot see the trees through the fog. And as a result, you know, if you're able to be agile, that is an opportunity, an open opportunity for you. You have seen the importance of financial stability. So look at the areas now that you can cut the expenses, create different processes, look at, you know, what other people are doing to automate. Look in that Google, if you're a Google fan, look at those extensions to see what you can do to kind of get rid of the dead weight or the very laborious tasks. So now you have time to go focus on your customers, or focus on your database or your listings, getting pictures or learning something. And then lastly, it is up to you to figure out how to adapt. again, getting, you have, you're part of GAR and maybe some of you are part of NAR as well, but looking and being part of that tribe, we talk about finding people who share your mindset, but those people would also help you figure out how to adapt, where to go, what to do next, webinars like these, so that you can adjust to your new circumstances so you can flourish. I have given you a wealth of knowledge. I have given you this 50,000-foot view, multiple areas for you to consider. I want you now to go back, dissect each piece, so now you can plan your post-COVID operations for a successful career. And with that, I will take a couple quick questions before we end. But let's see. If you have any questions, will GAR be providing handouts, instructions on technology used to ease this norm? I will leave that question for Peggy. If she's on the line, she can answer. If not, that's certainly something that I will let her know. The new normal has taken us back to pre-basic, pre-quals and communication. Yes, very good. Those relationships are exceptional. We have to come back to the foundation principles of what sets us apart as an industry. It is building those relationships. After government assistance ends, what is your suggestion and recommendation? Oh, wow, that is a heavy question. I think really that is an island infrastructure. We need to see what our leaders are doing and what they're going to do to support, especially with, tourism being our industry. There were several articles, I know one by the UOG president recently that was suggesting that, Guam takes suit after Barbados. They were offering, I think it was a 12-month visa that people can come in and be digital nomads. But there's so much that we can do, but I think just because there's so much, we're also overwhelmed. So we really have to see how things unfold. But there are multiple ways, I think, that we can look into how we can build our economy. But Melanie, that requires another lengthy conversation there. Let's see, what is the difference between pre-approved and pre-qualified? Thanks for that. So pre-approved is that, I am telling you, I come to my mortgage broker or my lender, sorry, and I say, I'm Nicole, I make this much a year, my credit is about this, these are my expenses, my liabilities, my overall net worth. And they say, sometimes they have you fill out some basic information, and based on what you provide, they will say, yes, you qualify for a $400,000 loan. Now, when I get all my paperwork and now they're actually running the numbers, then that actually says you are pre-qualified. You're pre-approved just based on what you're saying. But now the pre-qualification, I need to see your paycheck, I need to see your liabilities, and that now solidifies that yes, you do qualify for a $400,000 loan. It may go down to $350,000. And so the pre-qualification is a stronger indication of how much, because you don't want to be showing homes at 400 and 450,000, not knowing without the pre-qualification that they only qualify for 350. Okay, it's just wasting everybody's time. All right, let's see. We'll take one more question. If anybody has a final comment, I hope after this you realize that there is some growth to be seen. You have a lot of work on your plate for you to go back and truly sit down to strategize. My presentation will be shared with you so you can go back and understand, what you want to concentrate on. Take it in a bit by bit process so that, you become just more confident and more grounded in what your post-COVID operations is. All right, everybody, with that, thank you for your attendance and have a wonderful rest of the week. I will pass it over to Miss Peggy.
Thank you, Ms. Dhanraj. I appreciate it. And as soon as the information is shared with GAR, we will share it with everybody that have registered today. And I'll get her permission if this is something that we can also share in our website. Thank you very much. And don't forget to take a look at all the remaining list of CE classes that we have for the remainder of July. and register as well. Thank you all and have a pleasant day. Happy Liberation Day.
Thanks, Miss Peggy.
Thanks, Nicole. Can we have a chat for a little bit?
Yeah, sure.
And maybe after all the participants have left.
Let me pause that cloud recording.